Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Omni Athlete. You're here because, like us, you believe that sport is a vehicle for elevating global consciousness. But you know that elevating consciousness through sport only matters if it actually helps you to achieve a peak performance state, get in the zone, and compete at your highest level. We created this show to highlight the world's highest achieving mind, body, and spirit competitors, to unveil for you the side of sports that most never see and rarely know exists. Okay, so today's guest is an elite athlete and former pro hockey enforcer whose soul literally had to rise, reconnect, and unwind from the proverbial shackles of a destructive existence that brought him to the edge of taking his own life multiple times. While his original desire to fight manifested itself as just learning to box to avoid getting beat up at school, he soon learned that fighting on the ice might be his ticket to the NHL. When, as a 16-year-old, he challenged a 20-year-old player and quickly got noticed by his coaches and peers. He would go on to fight over 200 times during his career on the ice and eventually became captain of the Kelowna Rockets. Fans, announcers, and coaches characterized him as tough, resilient, fierce, and courageous. One of his fights has been viewed as much as some TED Talks, well over 140,000 times on YouTube. He, however, was plagued by depression, drug addiction, and suicidal thoughts from the repeated mental, emotional, and physical trauma. Were it not for the tragic deaths of three well-known hockey enforcers, Rick Ripien, Wade Belak, and Derek Bugard, that helped point him towards the growing research on CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and the powerful experiences he went through with the help of ayahuasca, he might not be with us today. Fortunately, our guest found a path through his dark night of the soul and emerged having touched the collective consciousness of our one mind, returning to this plane awakened to the love and connection we all share. He's now on a mission to share his experience and the expansiveness we can tap into as athletes and human beings through meditation, yoga, and his coaching of athletes going through similar struggles in their own career. It's my pleasure to introduce the Omni Athlete, James McEwan. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you very much, Josh. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. Wow. So in doing the research for your interview, there was a really personal note that I didn't expect to come up. So I was watching a couple of the interviews, short interviews you've done on YouTube, and I started kind of watching some of the fights. And the fight that I referenced, right, that's been viewed a crazy amount of times on YouTube, I realized very quickly as a young boy growing up, going to pro hockey games, how much is wrapped in the fighting that occurs on the ice, and how much as a kid I remember, just almost idolizing those moments watching it. And now I watch that and go, oh my gosh, this is absolutely brutal. Like, there is just physical and mental devastation occurring right there. And I just, man, it was really eye-opening to consider that from a totally different perspective.
Yeah, it's a rush. It's a rush for everyone in that experience, and it creates, an adrenaline, a high for the fighters. It's quite the experience when you have 10,000 people or more screaming and cheering, and all that energy is being directed towards these two people who could be squared off at center ice. And when those things happen, the adrenaline releases different hormones, different parts and centers of our brain that, maybe we don't feel initially what's happening, except that excitement and that primal, that primal energy that exists within us. But I think especially over the past 10 years, there's been a lot of information that's come up, shifts in consciousness. We know a lot more information than we do now about the brain, and about the effects that it has. Not only you'd hear about concussions and big knockout hits and how it's hard for guys to come back sometimes after that, but also the sustained, maybe not as hard impacts to the head, like multiple punches and things like that. So, I think brain health and is very important, because it is tied in with the way that we perceive the world, the way that we function. The brain the brain and the heart are probably some of the most important organs in the whole body. We need those things, and so it's really important that as an athlete, especially, to be able to perform to our full potential and live to our full potential, that we can have those things functioning at the best ability.
Can you walk us through, so much of what we talk about on the show is belief systems, right? And really working through the way that we look at the world as athletes. And, I think it would be really powerful for everybody if you were able to share a little bit about what kind of formed the core of your belief system as you were coming up through hockey, and what now forms the core of your belief system having gone through such a transformation, and really sharing what that was like. Because I think there are, as you know, a lot of athletes that, whether it's the same level of physical trauma or not, are going through similar challenges right now.
It really started off like just wanting to excel and be the best that I could be. And, from a young age in Canada, guys start playing hockey at 4 years old. Even some 3. I started playing at 4, started skating at 4. And, I think I used to just lay on the ice, and then I'd get the coach to drag me around. I'm like, this is kind of fun. But, went to power skating and a whole bunch of things to develop these skills. And, then it got into making rep teams and then making junior teams and seeing the dream of playing in the NHL and the fame and the glory that comes along with that. In hockey, hockey is almost like a religion in Canada, where it's like, it's an incredible game, and it's, brings a lot of people together. There's so many inspiring stories. So I would, my own personal journey, like, started off as just wanting to, do the best that I could, get to the highest level, make the NHL, and at any means necessary, I got to where, I had a goal and wanted to make it. And I seen different things like fighting, for example. It was getting me recognized more. There came a point where I needed to separate myself from the pack. And, I was scoring some goals, like my 16-year-old tryouts. I was scoring goals, I was playing hard, but I was getting overlooked. And so I made a decision that, maybe I'll do this and it'll get me recognized. And it did. And I started getting rewarded for that. And so I think it led more into, in sports, when I came up, there's a lot of ego, and with myself personally, with teammates, but there's a mix, is that team camaraderie where, the best teams could come together. But, as a personal journey, I think I was really about wanting to do the best that I could. And, I didn't realize the importance of my health, of my body, and then also, what happens to another person. And so I went through some transformational experiences that really shifted my consciousness. Some came through, a lot of pain, and some came through seeing some close people die around me. Like, I had my best friend, his mom passed away from cancer, and I was seeing that transformation of him working with health and trying to recuperate, and then, doing a lot of reading and seeing, wow, like, it's, really important what we put into our bodies and how we treat our bodies. And so that was really the start of it. And then my stepsister, she passed away, and that ended up to another shift that was like, wow, what, started questioning reality and like, well, like, what is all of this? And questions, I was really serious with my questions, and they started coming. And so I had some experiences where I started experiencing the connection between all of us, this connection that, we perceive that we're separate, from the teammates, from the earth, from everything. But I started having these experiences where there was a connection, and what I did and what I thought and what I said and how I acted affected other people. It affected my life, which affected other people. So bringing that back into being an enforcer, having these paradigm shifts and having these different ways of thinking kind of, download in or shift my paradigm, and everything kind of changed. And I was about 24 years old, and I was playing in the minors in South Carolina, and I had this experience where I was fighting on the ice, and dropped the glove, center ice, and everything kind of slowed down, and I was getting punched once in a while, kind of ducking and dodging and throwing some punches, but it was really slow. And I remember, thinking like, I feel like I'm punching myself in the face, like I'm punching this other guy. I feel like I'm fighting myself, and it was a really surreal experience. And I after the fight, I went to the penalty box or to the dressing room, and I seen all the fans cheering, but it was like everything was like slowed down. It was one of these kind of surreal experiences, and I was seeing like all the people getting drunk and cheering and screaming, and I was like, this doesn't feel right anymore. I was like, this is what I've done for so many years, but this didn't feel in alignment with my heart, with my soul, with my being anymore. And I didn't know how to let go. And different experiences came through injuries, which ended up being opportunities for me to start living a new way, to start living a new way. So in a nutshell, I guess that's kind of how some of those shifts took place.
When you reflect back on the questions you started asking, so what's incredible to me is that you had the courage in the moment to allow those questions to filter through, right? So much of just human experience, right, is we are bombarded with information, both consciously and subconsciously, and are more often than not making the decision that whether the question challenges too much of something that we believe, or is just we think is dumb, or we think shouldn't be true, or we don't ask ourselves tough questions. And I wonder, can you think back on, was it just that you came so close to death, right, and saw these tragedies around you happening that forced you to say, I need to ask better questions, or what was it that allowed you to really let those questions into your being in a way that you could really sit with them? Because I think that's really challenging.
I think it was a combination of everything, from seeing some deaths from people close around me, and then the hockey community it's a small community. Everyone's connected, in some way or another. And so seeing, those tragic deaths of Ripon, Bugard, and Belak, and Probert before that, and I think it was all connected. There's this is kind of like this pressure cooker where I think in my late teens, probably around 19, is when I started to feel maybe maybe some of the effects of what I was doing with the fighting. But I was so focused, and it was just like, I just need to make the NHL. So I had some surgeries start there, and that's when alcohol consumption went up more, and pain pills, and I started drinking more and more, and I didn't think I had is any issue. It was kind of a common thing in the culture where guys would go for beers, work hard, play hard, party hard. It was just like a reward, and had a lot of fun at the time. But things started happening, like a lot of things where from seeing those the deaths happen from personal injuries, where I went through several surgeries in a span of like 4 or 5 years. And so it was from the pressure and the intensity around me that was really like, well, what I don't really know how these questions happen. They kind of arose, and they arose because I started seeing what was happening around me and how I was living. I think something intuitively knew that this is not sustainable, and that the intensity that I was living at from being a fighter, busting my hands up, having surgeries on all parts of my body, and not being aware of brain injuries. I didn't watch the movie Concussion yet, but started being aware of, wow, mentally I'm, going through ups and downs, and then it's getting more intense, and like, so it really started happening. I stopped drinking. Emotions would come up, and these feelings came up, whereas like this veil of numbness of what was going around started to lift, and I was seeing that there's a better way, and so I went in search for that, and that's been a big part of the journey.
So you've talked that story about feeling like you were punching yourself in the face, right? I think there's, James, I find it incredible for a whole host of reasons. One of them being, I'm really fascinated with quantum physics, right? And the idea of entanglement, which is this idea, right, that, at the basic level, the subatomic particle level, we all started connected, right? And as the universe has expanded, it may, we may have different particles in our bodies, but they all started from one place together. And I have to, I can only imagine for you in that moment when you felt it, how tough it was, or would have probably been, to process that and not go, I must be crazy right now.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then it's kind of like, you watch the movie The Matrix. It's like, do you want to see reality as it really is? And seeing that, yeah, like we are connected. We are. And, if we look at it now from a scientific point of view through quantum physics, we see that we are. There's a field that is invisible even between us, where our thoughts travel through, where sound travels through, where light travels through, And so our thoughts, our words, our actions, they all have an effect on consciousness, on reality. And, yoga really helped me to, and when I mean yoga, I also mean the philosophy, like the Eastern philosophy, and learning about, how, if we look at even all spiritual teachings, it comes from let there be light. It comes from Om, from sound. There was nothingness, but then there was light and sound. The Creator said, "Let there be light." It was a sound that is still vibrating. On a scientific level, on a quantum physical level, it's all vibration. So we're all connected in that one vibration. And I think at an intuitive level, we know this, and we can feel it. Bob Marley would sing "One Love," and it's like, well, what is that vibration? You can call it many names. We can call it many names, but ultimately it's love. And so when doing things that aren't in alignment with that, it can lead to challenges, but also it's part of the gift of life to go through these journeys of like, wow, I was living in darkness, now I'm living in light, and I was in sickness and injury, now in healing. And it's like it's part of the beauty of life is that contrast. But I think for me personally, when I experience the other, it's like, hey, well, I've walked down that path, I don't need to go down that. And now to share it with other athletes and other people coming up, I think is really important in the evolutionary process of our consciousness as a society, as a community, for hockey and all athletes, where we're not the same as we were 10 years ago. We're not the same as we were 100 years ago. And when we try and fit old belief systems and old patterns in these new ways, it's not working. And so it's a part of the evolutionary process in sports and all around. And what we're seeing, is part of evolution. And part of that is with the consciousness of realizing what I do to another, affects the whole. What I think and say about myself affects me and the whole reality. So it's
it's so what came to mind there is when we think of, so self-talk is something that we no pun intended, talk about a lot, right? Because as athletes, we have a tendency to either not be aware of our self-talk or truly not be honest with ourselves sometimes about what our self-talk is doing to us, right? So we may either try to ignore it or just pretend that it is either more positive or more not even positive in this kind of, lovey-dovey abstract sense, but is it something that's helping us move towards where we want to be and move towards a sense of expansiveness and openness. And what I thought about right there as you were talking, James, is if we think about being connected as just beings, right, then what happens is now as a coach or as an athlete talking to my team, it's not just the impact my self-talk has on me, but it truly is the impact my self-talk has on the people around me. And that's a totally different shift in how important it is to become aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Self-talk is huge. And I think through meditation has really helped me realize that I'm not, I'm not just my thoughts. There's something beyond that. And for so long, I lived in the state of no awareness of my thoughts. I was thinking this, I'm just doing that, going all over. But the mind it's like a monkey mind until we can realize that the mind is not our master. When we can master our mind and make the mind our servant, it becomes our greatest tool, because the mind is so powerful. But a good teacher said that the mind makes a lousy master, but a great servant, and that's how it's supposed to be. So for meditation helps bring that awareness of, wow, there's all these different thoughts. We have the power to direct them. And having that power to direct thought in a sense of sports and teammates and performance is so important. We see more and more with psychologists and sports psychology of affirmations and what are we thinking, because everything that we're seeing around us, from how we're performing, how we're living, comes from something called metaphysical, something we can't see, which is thought. So how we think will literally come out into our performance, into how we're being around other people, and it'll start being our reality around us. This computer, everything we're looking at all came from a thought and came from an imagination, and it took someone to be persistent with that thought to bring it into physical reality. So, with the mind, we can train it as an athlete, as an Omni Athlete. It's like we can use these different dimensions of ourselves to train our minds to work for us. And, it's something around 90% or more of our actions are from our subconscious mind, which is all from reprogramming and patterns. So we can reprogram over time with positive thoughts, positive affirmations in the direction that we want to create. So using the mind as a tool is key. It's key to success in any field.
Where do you start, James, when you interact with a younger athlete, right? So I think what I'm fascinated by, and really what we want to understand at Omni Athlete truly, is how do we help young athletes get over the stigma around words like spiritual and mindfulness and even just, the idea of can I separate myself from my thoughts, right? There are these concepts that for a lot of kids that are 14, 15, 16, let alone even professionals, right? There's a real challenge in being open to that. Where do you typically try to start with a young athlete that you begin working with or coaching or mentoring?
Well, it's really getting to a place of calmness, and it doesn't have to be spiritual. If someone doesn't have a spiritual belief, that's okay. It can be strictly physical, where it's like, well, if we're feeling physically relaxed, and the way that can connect it all is through the breath. So usually to start is with breathing and just taking a few breaths and getting in a space of, okay, I'm in a space connected to my breath, or just aware of my breath. Maybe the mind's going, but all of a sudden take a deep breath and, okay, I'm just aware of my breath. That in itself is, a start of meditation or a start of relaxation, or whatever term to put to it. So, I'll meet someone where they're at, and then from there get clear on, well, what is it that you're wanting to experience, going into that and going into the why, and really getting in tune with what's in here, because what's in our heart, what is it really, not from here but starting here. And then when this, and I'm pointing to the mind, even though the mind is all over, we think of the brain and the mind, right? But when this is in alignment with our heart, with our core, with the deepest part of ourself, then we're coming from a strong foundation. But if it's just like, I want to do this, that, that's mind stuff, that's going to crumble. So, if it's physical training, getting connected right at the core, building a strong foundation is really strong. But working on, mental training is even more important. Like, we know that, I think when I was coming up, they were saying, the mental part of the game is probably about 80% of the game. It's probably 80% mental. Now I'm hearing 90%. Now I've even heard some psychologists say, it's probably 95 to 97. There's always these percentages that get thrown out, but it's very important. So having those thoughts aligned with our foundation of what is really important to us, away from ego, what is really implanted in us by our spirit, or by something in our heart, however resonates. There's something deep within all of us that calls us to do something. And so when we can align with that and then direct our minds with that, it's powerful. It's a powerful force.
Why does it feel like so much of, and this is evolving, but I think it's still a challenge that we face. Sports sometimes, especially as, I remember coming up as a high school athlete, I don't know that my heart and head ever did get connected, right? And I don't know, I wonder, and I'm processing a little bit out loud, but I wonder sometimes why it's so easy for those two to be disconnected when we do something that in its purest form is so interconnected.
Well, I think a lot of times too in sports, we can go into that state where it's almost like, when we're in that, we hear a lot about flow states, or in the flow state, and it's almost mindless, but the thing that's come from that has took a lot of training. It's taken a lot of mind body work to get into that state. And so from that work, all of a sudden we sync up and we're in that flow. And it's just like, a great musician is just playing, like letting that flow, or if you're writing, it just flows through. So I think those states can come even if, someone isn't spiritual or thinking about psychological things. I've heard some of the most spiritual people don't even know they're spiritual, or things like that. So it's everyone has their own way, and everyone's on their own path. And I think now that we have more information now, in 2018, we're living in a completely different time than when I was coming up as an athlete. And so we have so much more information. We have so much more tools, technology, not just computers, but, these breathing techniques and these ways to move our body mixed with our breath and mixed with sound, has an effect on our brain to grow different centers, taking us to the higher centers that create more creativity in our brain. These things have a huge effect, and they're tools and technologies and techniques that are incredible. And now with how things are so connected, we can get teachings from the East by just going on YouTube, right. All these things, we're East, West, North, South, we're all so much more connected now. The information is available, and it's amazing what we can do with it. And so bring it to younger children, and coming up and showing these technologies, or these ways that it's going to be incredible for what they can do. Like, even these tools of meditation, I keep thinking like, wow, if I had these when I was younger, was able to stay, calm and grounded, more sufficiently sustained, and was more aware, like more hyper aware, but still calm around my surroundings. You can start realizing that it's not just what my eyes are seeing, but we have a whole feeling system. Like there's a whole electromagnetic field that we have. It's not just this physical body, but electromagnetic field where we can feel things around us. And as an athlete, it's like having spider senses. And so developing those things, it's going to be incredible where it goes, just on a physical performance level. It's going to, yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. It is an exciting time to be alive because the potential is unlimited.
So I have two questions. The first is just a comment. Like, James, your energy is radiating right now, and it's really cool to feel that. Seriously, as you talk about what you see in the world right now, that's super energizing. And I think, for athletes or coaches watching, I think that's the biggest, like, those kind of moments are what can get us as a collective culture within sports to lean in to saying, okay, we know that, like, science has proven that there's something bigger here, right? Science has proven that there's an electromagnetic field. Science has proven that our vision, when we're not focused on something, is really like looking through a blurry piece of glass, right? That our peripherals, as easy as it may seem to say that I can see this light right next to me, or that I can see this background here, I really can't, right? And our science is there, but when athletes hear somebody who's walked this path and who's gone through the transformation that you have, talk about the idea of somatic awareness being greater than just, can I feel my hands and feet, but really having that spider sense, like, dude, that is energizing. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see what it's going to be, and like, I think of the saying frequently, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We're people who have come before, like, our ancestors have, my grandparents, lived on a farm, and had to walk to the library just to get a book, which was miles away. And, like, to see where we're living now, in just a couple of generations. Even if you take one sport, by example, take hockey, you see what hockey was even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 50, it wasn't the same game. Same with, it was the same, but it's evolved and changed. And same with every sport, baseball, football, it's, so as athletes evolve physically, mentally, energetically, it's, so will the game, so will everything around us. There's, I think, our sports and our art are a reflection of our society. It's a reflective of our consciousness, of where we're at. And there's so much potential. So very inspiring where we're going with this.
What has your body felt as you, so a natural progression that that other guests have mentioned too on the show, right? As young athletes that come up, and the mentality that they approach their body with, and the perspective is, I need to build this, I need to build as much muscle as I can, I need to get stronger, I need to get physically just dominant, right? And what we have learned both scientifically and just energetically is that often that's actually counterproductive to producing opportunities for performance, right? Especially in a sport like hockey, where so much of it is about fluidity and flexibility, and the ability to really let your body adapt in dynamic situations that, aren't necessarily needing to have that 10 extra pounds of muscle on it to really perform. How has your body, what's the transformation been for your body through this entire process?
Oh man, it's been transformational. I think at my heaviest that I played was when I was 18. I was about 205, and I wanted to be the biggest, strongest I could be. I was getting, weighed and assessed for central scouting, and so I was like, okay, just, but I was strong. I could bench press, plus 300 pounds, and I was squatting probably close to 500 pounds, and like, you know, I was strong. And but then, you know, I wasn't as quick and wasn't as mobile. I wasn't as aware of my body. Like I look now and it's kind of like, you know, reflection of where I'm going to. But I had an incredible trainer who's now, you know, a very close friend, and helped me transform the way that I thought about training, and became really focused on core, really focused on seeing the body as a whole unit, and how it's evolved, you know, with the yoga and with the breathing, and seeing that every part, every cell has a function, every cell, you know, has consciousness. And so as an athlete, you want every muscle, you want every cell, you want everything to be productive. And, you know, having 10 pounds of extra weight isn't always the most productive. It depends on your sport too. Like if you look at the Olympics, everyone's different shape depending on their sport. You know, for hockey, you know, it's such a quick game now, and it's really a skilled game. And so the faster, the more mobile, the more agile you can be, is really important. So being able to move, mobility of the spine, you know, that's why I love teaching Kundalini yoga, because not only is it for health and healing, but for performance, the spinal movements, getting the intelligence that lays in the spines, you know, it affects us on an energetic level, but also on a physical level, on every level, having that spine mobility and being connected with how we move, being conscious with how we move. And if you look at some of, you know, like Conor McGregor, like I've looked at some of the way that he trains, and, you know, he's really into movement with his trainer. And, you know, there's so many different ways of thinking, but really it's about movement, consciousness of how we're moving. And it's not about being the biggest, strongest anymore. It's like, I really love the way Bruce Lee trained, where he was like really a light guy between like 130, 150 or something like that. But the power that he could generate through his breath and through his core, which is bringing his whole nervous system together, could generate massive amounts of power, which would move people across the room, which is still affecting us today from that energy that he generated. And so a lot of the training that I focus on is nervous system training, where it's like syncing up the nervous system to sync up the respiratory system with the muscular, with the skeletal, syncing everything up to work as one unit. And it becomes multidimensional, knowing that it's not just muscle, it's not just even bones. There's a nervous system, there's an energy system flowing through us, and so that has a huge effect on our performance.
What is your relationship currently, and what has it been to pain?
Oh, to pain. I think pain can be a great teacher. Pain can be a guide. For me, there's different kinds of pain. You know, if it can be saying, don't do that, or it could be, you know, there's that burning pain if you're growing. It's really, it's a teacher for me. It's been a teacher, not to shy away from it, but not needing it for suffering. You know, there's that balance where it's like, you know, no pain, no pleasure. That's not true. You know, I think that's kind of but there is some truth in it. So it's changing, you know, it's changing, but I think relationship with pain is a teacher. It's a valuable teacher.
And the reason I ask that question is because I think as we become more aware of our body, I know for me, one of the biggest, you know, just journeys that I've been on is recognizing just what you said, right? Pain is, you know, as a teacher, you know, we've a great quote, you know, pain is an echo of communication in the body, right? You know, it can be a signal, not something to run away from and not something to numb ourselves to. Yeah. And I think, I know this is something that you have worked through, and that I think a lot of athletes go through, is there is a tendency to want to numb it, right? Because of the mental and emotional connection that we have to pain so frequently. and to what we believe might happen to ourselves if we lean into that pain and try to listen to it, that there's just a desire to numb it and make it go away as fast as we can so we can keep staying in our bubble, so to speak.
I think that's a really good point. And we see that with a lot of pain medications where they're overprescribed. There's a huge opiate crisis, like in Canada and the US, and where it's overprescribed. And I'll give an example. One of the surgeries I had was a shoulder surgery. I had tore my rotator cuff, and they had to go do surgery. And I had surgery on my hands, 2 surgeries the year before, a ruptured tendon and shattered one of the bones in my hand. I had to get reconstructive surgery. I took pain pills and for that, which was what I needed to do, what the doctors gave me. But after my shoulder surgery, I was changing the way, I was really about health conscious and really feeling the effects of that. And it was part of my path on seeing how important health was. But I didn't, I went under anesthesia for my shoulder surgery, but I didn't, they prescribed me pain pills, but I threw them out and I didn't take any pain pills. And it was excruciating for a while, but then I was living in California at the time. So the accessibility to cannabis was available, and I was using that, and the benefits from that, from managing pain, were really good. And it wasn't having the effect on my nervous system that the pain pills were, because not only do the pain pills numb physical pain, but also they numb us from, it's like when you're taking penicillin, antibiotics, kills the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. It numbs feeling, it numbs feeling, it numbs good feeling and bad feeling, where it's just I was starting to become a shell, with alcohol, with pain pills. And I was doing it to medicate at first from the surgeries, but then, if other pain was coming too, it was numbing. And, everything that we're talking about with the electromagnetic field, becoming more aware, like tuned into having these like spider senses, are affected negatively and diminished. Our energy is diminished by taking these. And now, don't get me wrong, there is a time where it's like, this is excruciating pain, get this guy a pain pill. Like, seriously, there is a time, and it's like everyone has their own tolerance. But there comes a time where you got to get off them. Or nowadays, especially with the research of medical marijuana and cannabis on using these plant-based, not these chemical and really these synthetics produced things that aren't in line with our body and our being, and that are disconnecting us from ourselves, disconnecting us from nature, but actually going back to nature and healing our bodies at the core of it through whole foods, from high vibrational foods. Just like we want high vibrational thoughts, we want high vibrational foods that are healers. Food is a medicine, and there's medicines that the earth produces that are incredible and that can heal pain naturally, and that don't have the damaging effects on our brain, on our nervous system, and that can bring us into a place of wholeness and health without going through that other damage. So, I think there's some really good things going on with using those kind of plant medicines for dealing with physical pain and mental, emotional pain as well.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to just share what your experience was like with ayahuasca, right? And where and how that played into your journey. And the reason I'll ask is, off camera before in conversations we've had, James, I remember talking very specifically about opening up the pineal gland, right? And opening up the sense of awareness that we can have and the connection to the world around us. And I think, I just would love for you to share whatever feels connected in this moment to that space.
Yeah. Well, first, ayahuasca it's no joke, it's not a recreational thing. And I think it's gotten a lot more popularity now, with the internet, and it's very important that it's used responsibly and is used with a teacher, a medicine man who is very, it's like going into surgery. So, you want to make sure if you're going into that surgery, you have a really good doctor who knows what they're doing. But how it worked for me was this was when I wasn't playing hockey. So I was facing more surgeries, and I said, what, I need to step away and find a way to heal. So I started finding yoga, and started with like hatha yoga to heal my body. As a hip surgery they wanted to do, and ended up healing it through yoga. But everything started coming up. It was a reflection. The physical pain was a reflection of the internal stuff that was happening too. And so I was very depressed, and I was, I wasn't playing hockey. I was focusing on healing, but I was also extremely depressed, where I was feeling suicidal and not knowing what to do, and not feeling like myself. And like I was looking for a way to feel better. And I went to my doctor, and prescribed me antidepressants, and I threw them out. I said, there's something in me that I don't want to take these. It's like my heart was saying, no, there's another way. And so I threw them out, and I kept searching. And I heard on a podcast, it might have been Joe Rogan or Aubrey Marcus, was sharing his experience of ayahuasca, and the effects with the DMT that's in there. And the DMT is produced from the pineal gland. And so I was educated and with that, and so when I started learning about that there's actually, this has been a powerful healing process from South America for thousands of years, I was definitely drawn to it. And so I did some research, and I found it more found me, whether I found it or it came to me, and I couldn't turn away from it. Yeah. And everything in my being said, no, I need to do this. And so I worked with a medicine man, and it was in a really sacred ceremony, and it is and has been a powerful healing journey, where it's every experience has been different. And when it's got me, it's been a medicine that's helped me mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it has definitely a feminine energy. They call her Mother Ayahuasca, and she's a powerful healer, but needs to be treated responsibly, respectfully, and with the sacredness that it carries. And yeah, it's been a big part of my healing. And it's not it's kind of like when we ask about it, well, where do I start with it? Like, there's been, experiences where, I face some of my biggest fears, and it's kind of like, a purge where you sometimes will throw up and purge, but it's also a purge of this emotional baggage and things that's been brought on from, past experiences. And so through that is facing fears, is experiencing some pain, but the release of that has been big, has been big to get me, to keep me balanced, and to bring me into a place of peace, of connection, of, feeling connected with, like we've talked about, with nature, with our bodies, with one another. So it's a pretty deep, powerful, profound experience that I'm really grateful for.
What occurs to me too, James, is that I'm really curious about is through that process, and I'm sure it wasn't that alone, but just in your journey,
Mhm.
emotions have this really powerful way to point us towards our ego if we're willing to see and observe, right?
Mhm.
And I wonder, as your transformation has occurred, whether the more that you could peel back the hooks of different emotions, right, that may or may not be yours even, right, that could be
Mhm.
passed from past experiences, from playing, from trauma that you experienced as an athlete, or just from, as we all do in life, we carry with us emotional baggage that, we've proven scientifically often has nothing to do with the life experience we've had. I wonder how your body reflected that shedding of those emotional, blocks, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I ran into a friend this Easter, and we played junior together, and we haven't seen each other for almost 12 years. And he's in the army now, big, strong guy. And when I played, I was around 200, and then I started decreasing weight. And when he seen me, he looked at me. He's like, "You're so skinny now." He's like, "What hat?" And he's like, "You used to walk around with a big chest and bench pressing 300 pounds." It's like, what? But yeah, it's on a physical level, it's reflected a lot of change. I feel stronger, than ever. I don't bench press 300 pounds. I don't need to, but I feel, really strong, really alive. Um, but like what you said with releasing those patterns that have been not only ingrained by this lifetime, but on a you know from our DNA. They say 7 generations these things can be passed, and that's very important that we don't get trapped in this. We can't change our DNA, our genes. We can, but it takes work. It takes work to change patterns. That's what the meditation is doing, is going in and not responding to these impulses and these things that might have been ingrained in us from a young age, or are ingrained in us from generations to generations. That's part of evolution. And so it's a physical, mental, energetical evolution that's happening. And these medicines like ayahuasca, these technologies like meditation and yoga, these are technologies and things that are very powerful on the effect of our consciousness and on the evolutionary scale that's happening globally. It's happening universally. Everything's changing. We're living in an evolving universe and changing. So we're coming more back into ourselves and letting go, like a snake sheds its skin. And it happens on many levels. And yeah, so it's when we let go of old ways of thinking, the old ways of being that don't serve us anymore, it affects us on the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we treat ourselves. Become more conscious of what we're putting into our bodies. Our bodies are, they're temples. Our bodies are sacred. We get one body in this life, and want to be able to express it as best as we can. And sports is a beautiful way to do that. But it can also be a way that I've seen through other things, like as a business, of exploiting the body by any means necessary, to do it just for money, and do it for that's more ego. That's more, call it Piscean age. It's more, dog eat dog by whatever it takes. But we're removing as a collective consciousness is we're living in astrologically in an Aquarian age, where I think 2012 we heard, well, the end of the world's going to happen, and a lot of different cultures were talking about that, like the Mayans and cultures all over. And I remember when my transformation really started happening was around then. And when all those things started happening was around the 2012 mark, and leading up to it. And learning a little bit about astrology and seeing like where our galaxy is in the universe or solar system. It's like we're not only as beings are we changing, but our universe is changing. We're not in the same age, and that marked a shift. It was the end of the world. It was the end of the world as we knew it. And so we're living in a new world. We're living in a new way of being, a new age. And part of that is, the old ways don't just all of a sudden they're gone. It shifts, So old belief patterns diminish, new belief patterns start to emerge. Same with the way that we eat, that we treat our bodies, that we treat everything around us. It's evolving and it's changing. But noticeably, if we look around, there's meditation, yoga, there's more vegetarians now on the planet than there's ever been. People are becoming more conscious of life. And really it's about life. It's like when we look at what's happening is we're becoming more awake and more attuned to seeing like life is beautiful. Life is sacred. And there's so many things that we can do with life, like through sports, to express the unlimited potential these bodies have, the unlimited potential our minds have. Some of these things that, athletes overcome to win championships and do these things, that they're incredible. And it's an incredible demonstration of the human spirit. And within that is we're also changing on how we do it. We're also changing in how we live. And I think it's really exciting, the shifts that are happening, the evolution that's happening, the change that's happening. It can be, I think a lot of times we can be scared of change, but we don't need to be afraid of it. We embrace it, because the energy that's changing us, that's evolving this thing, has our best interests in mind. And this change in this process is really an incredible thing.
I agree. So James, before I ask my final question, where can these guys go if they want to connect with you online?
Connect with me on Facebook, James McEwan. I have a website coming up, and it'll be launching soon, but probably the best way is Facebook. If you just search James McEwan, there'll be more things coming online too.
So my final question, and I think you've already answered a little bit, but I want to ask it because that's what we do. So the final question is, what does it mean to be an Omni Athlete?
That's a good question. I loved when I heard that for the first time, and I love the name Omni Athlete. To me, the Omni Athlete, sums up what we talked about as being connected to the omnipresent, the omnipotent energy that is within us and that is all around us, and to be connected with that, and to perform and to live in that transcendental, that connected, that whole space of unlimited potential, and to perform and to live as an example of that unlimited potential, as an example of the omnipresent, omnipotent energy that is within us and all around us.
It's incredible, James. Wow, thank you for being on the show, James. This has been awesome and energizing. Guys, you hear me stammering more than I usually do, and the reason is there is such an intense and energizing presence to James that I am feeling myself so conscious and present in this moment that there's so many questions flooding into my head, and I hope you guys can feel that through this interview. Go online, go to Facebook, check out what James is working on, and just connect with him. The thing that you guys are going to understand immediately, and as you learn more about his story and just more about the perspective that he brings to this world, is that we are expansive beings, and James has walked that journey that you sometimes have to go through as an athlete, where we are challenged to really come face to face with belief systems that are truly what we've built our entire world on. And James is living proof of this, right? Like you have to be willing to ask those tough questions that are going to challenge the beliefs that you have, the way that you look at the world, the way that the world looks at you. And just when you engage with James, you're going to see that you can do it and come out the other side, not just stronger, not just healthier, but more whole. And ultimately, when we compete in sport, that is what we are after. We're after being whole, being human beings that can express ourselves fully and express that potential fully through the act of sport. And James embodies that completely. So go online, Check him out, connect, and be ready to really experience what it means to be an expansive and connected individual. Until next time, guys. What is up, Omni Athletes? Thank you guys for watching another episode of Omni Athlete. If this content is adding value to your lives, guys, please like and share and subscribe in every way you can. Share our content. That helps us grow this community, which is really ultimately what we are after right now. So please like, comment, share, tell your friends about what we're doing. If it's adding value, please share it. And if it's not, tell us so we can really improve this content and make sure it's something that you guys want and want to see. Coming up, guys, in July, I'm super excited to announce we have the 2018 Sports, Energy, and Consciousness Festival. It's going to be in San Rafael, California. This is an absolutely incredible event for a lot of reasons. The main one being you get to actually engage with so many of the people that we've had on the show, so many of the leaders in sports, energy, and consciousness. The speakers are absolutely incredible, and the community is even more incredible. So I cannot encourage you guys enough. Get to this festival. It is going to be an experience that transforms your vision of athletics, your ability to achieve peak performance, to find flow, to awaken an expanded level of consciousness in your performance that you just cannot find anywhere else. It's truly the tip of the iceberg, and you guys want to be part of it. July 13th through 15th in San Rafael, California. Go to sportsenergyfestival.com to get your tickets today before they run out. It's going to go quick, guys. Get there. sportsenergyfestival.com, July 13th through 15th. We'll see you there.